We'll call the City Council regular meeting to order for Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Hoyt.
Here.
Councilmember Burnett. Here. Councilmember Lean.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
All right. If there's not any changes to the agenda.
Motion to approve. Oh, excuse me.
I'd like to pull item 7.3 from the consent agenda, the amendment 1 to the construction service scope and budget for the Aiken Road improvement. I'd like to pull this item for staff to take a little bit more time looking into some additional options that we may have.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Any other changes or adjustments to the agenda? And we look for a motion to approve the agenda with the reduction of item 7.3 from the consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Nick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to our citizen comments. And there's no one here, so we'll move right on to the consent agenda. I'm going to add what would be 7 TAC 12. I'm going to add, at our last council meeting, Mr. Pritzoff was here and had a 4-page statement that he wanted to read. And so I'd like to have that added as a part of the, either added as 7.12 or would we just amend the official minutes to 7.1 to include his page?
Could we do the consent as posted and then address this as like in maybe 12 new business that the council will like receive his comments?
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Whatever the attorney says, we do.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yep.
Approve the consent agenda, accepting 7.3.
So motion by Steve.
Second.
Second by Nick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to our public hearings. The next item on the agenda is 8 TAC 1. Now, this is a public hearing. So I'd like to open the public hearing at this time for the consideration of resolution number R58 TAC 23, certifying the 2024 property tax levy recommendation by the Farmington Economic Development Authority. Deanna.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I thought I would provide a little bit of background on what an EDA levy is and how we have the authority to request such a levy. Minnesota statutes allow cities at the request of an EDA to levy a tax to support specific economic development activities. The cities can levy up to 0.01813% of the city's taxable market value, and based on the 2023 taxable market value, that would be over $500,000 that we are allowed by statutes to levy. The city of Farmington has not had an EDA levy, and this levy that's being requested would provide a dedicated funding source for specific economic development programming. The Farmington Economic Development Authority has met and talked about this at multiple meetings, and they're requesting a $150,000 levy as part of the 2024 budget, which is significantly less than what is allowed per statute. Again, this proposed levy would support economic development efforts and the city's priority of quality business growth and retention. Some of the things that have been identified in the Economic Development Authority's work plan for 2024 that this funding would support would be strategic memberships for generating business leads and marketing, targeted business recruitment efforts, specific program development such as a revolving loan fund, and then other efforts and initiatives that advance the city's vision. So the process to establish a levy, as identified in the statutes, is the EDA must pass a resolution recommending a specific amount to be included for EDA purposes. And again, there's a maximum that could be, and the request from the Farmington EDA is much less than what the maximum would be. The City Council is asked then to notice for a public hearing, and that was done a few meetings ago. And then the City Council must conduct a required public hearing after proper notice. and then take action either to adopt or not adopt a resolution authorizing the proposed levy. Those are the steps where we're at tonight. And then if authorized, the city council adopts and certifies a proposed and final levy, and then we have to publish this in the newspaper. So that is the process. That's why we're here tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I worked very closely with the city attorney, who's also here tonight to answer questions about the process.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions, Steve?
Yeah, Deanna, I really appreciate all the work that you put into this. One question, just to kind of remind council and actually inform the public. So if we adopt this, the process is actually a little bit different in subsequent years, correct?
Correct. And, maybe the process that we're going through tonight is to establish the levy, which is why we have to
Right.
have a special public hearing, since the Farmington City Council has never had an EDA levy. Going forward, there's still resolutions that have to be adopted by the EDA, and those brought forward and incorporated as part of the the future budget cycles, but there's no additional separate public hearing associated with the EDA levy.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's our understanding at this point. Great job, Deanna. Didn't mean to leave you hanging. It's good.
I'm good.
Good. Nick?
No questions for me.
No? Holly?
The only question that I have actually just has a little bit more to do with like information sharing. And obviously you had the opportunity, you could have come forward with a request for up to $500,000 plus dollars. Your decision to instead move forward with $150,000. Explain that a little bit. Explain, ultimately where did that number come from, and how is that a solid number for an EDA levy?
Sure, thank you for that. We have put a lot of time and energy into identifying specific things that we can accomplish with the resources that we have, and then building upon the momentum that we've had going this year. And so we've looked at people resources and identified things that we can accomplish in-house. And then we've looked at some timing factors, and then really spent just analyzing that time, analyzing what makes sense, what can we pursue, what are we ready to pursue, and how can this EDA levy start building some additional funding for us moving forward. And so $150,000 is definitely way less than what we are allowed to levy up to or request. However, we couldn't come up with enough things that we felt like we could responsibly accomplish by coming forward in year one asking for the full levy. So this moves us forward significantly in a responsible way, where we'll feel very confident that we can accomplish what we've identified in the proposed work plan and report back to both the EDA and the City Council with our accomplishments. Every year the EDA will be, if this moves forward, every year the EDA will be looking at a levy, and that will analyze that request based on the accomplishments of the previous year and what we feel, again, that we can responsibly do moving forward. And so we put a lot of effort into identifying a number that made sense, and that we felt confident in, that we could make a significant impact, but being, mindful that this is part of a bigger, ask of a budget that the council has to consider.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions respective of the presentation. I appreciate it. Because this is a public hearing, this would be the time where any residents or anyone in attendance could come up and speak. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at this time. And at this point, council would deliberate, and we can converse about or make any comments before I'd ask for a motion to either approve or deny the tax levy. Nick, would you like to start? If you have anything?
Like I said, we've discussed this at length. We've all been present for the thing, so I have no disagreement with where we ended up on it.
Holly?
I would agree. I'm feeling very comfortable. All of the information shared is consistent. I think it's a responsible ask. I'm good.
Steve?
I'm good.
The only thing that I'm going to add, just a little formality for, or clarification for our residents, because at our last council meeting, we had some comments about it. think there's a natural assumption within economic development that staff is already having the capacity to do things, there's already enough money there and all the things. And yet, the appointed representatives from different bodies that have comprised the EDA over the years have not exercised this option. And this is not only a council priority, but it is also a pain point of our residents and our businesses, right? Alleviating the tax burden. And so how do you alleviate a tax burden? By adding more taxes, right? You have to increase capacity. And that's what this levy is going to do. The Economic Development Authority, which is the city council at this time, has spent several meetings, extensive dialogue regarding what those actions are going to be, what the metrics are, and how we're going to measure our success. And we asked your team, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Do you want more? Like where do you need? And you and your team were, to Holly's question or comment, you're being stewards of the tax dollars. You very specifically said, even if you gave us more, absent buying land or doing something else, we only have a certain capacity. And so next year, 2024, subject to an approval here, this is a year of turning the page for economic development. This is an opportunity for our residents to invest in our economic development in our future. And that's what we're ultimately going to decide on this evening, is making that next step forward and doing that. So I appreciate all the time you put into it, and the dialogue, and the very analytical approach that you have to the proposal that you brought forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I would seek a motion to adopt Resolution R58-23, certifying the 2024 property tax levy recommendation by the Farmington Economic Development Authority.
Motion.
Motion by Holly,
Second.
second by Steve. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brunetz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lean,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Hoyt.
Yes. All right, we will move on to item 10.1, which is the ordinance amending section 10.629, chickens on urban residential lots.
That's what we
Tony.
all wanted to talk about this evening, right? Thank you, Mayor, council members. This evening, I do have an ordinance amendment before you. As Mayor Hoyt had mentioned, it's to section 10.629 of the zoning ordinance as it relates to chickens on urban residential lots. The original ordinance was approved back in 2013. The proposal that we have before you this evening is an attempt to make the process of obtaining such a permit a little less cumbersome for the residents. The substantive changes that are being proposed include the following: making the initial permit administrative, removing the requirement of a public hearing for that initial permit. The proposed code does, though, however, provide that adjacent property owners at least be notified that the city did receive an application. Removing the requirement that the property be located within a R1 zoning district. This allows for a permit on any property developed for a single-family dwelling within a residential zoning district. So it has to be a single-family built home in a residential zoning district. Identifying the exterior finishing materials for the coop and run, along with proposed construction methods. Adding verbiage under section A, adding a number 4, basically stating that any other information that the zoning administrator deems necessary to evaluate the application for compliance with the requirements of this section and this code. Changing the time period for approval of an administrative renewal permit from yearly to every 2 years from the date of that initial approval. Adding verbiage within the code that eggs from chickens are for personal use and consumption by the owners of the chickens and may not be offered for sale or sold. And then the last bigger change is increasing the number of hen chickens allowed from 3 to 4. The Planning Commission did review this ordinance and held a public hearing at its August 8th regular meeting. They did recommend approval of this ordinance and the attached summary ordinance with a vote of 5-0. The action as requested this evening is to approve and pass ordinance number 023774 and the summary ordinance thereof, amending Title 10, Chapter 6, Section 29 of the Farmington City Code as it relates to chickens on residential lots. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Steve, any questions?
Yeah, Tony, I have one. Paragraph F was added for what reason? In other words, was there a problem that came up to add the not to be sold?
That was a request of the Planning Commission. We have a total of 9 active permits in the community. We have not had a single issue with any of those 9 permits. We've approved a total of 15 from 2013 when it was approved to last year. You know, the handful that are no longer active are because they either moved or they just decided to stop having the chickens. But no, we have not had a specific issue. That was specifically from the chair of the Planning Commission. He wanted to have that verbiage placed in there, as that was never the intent of that code.
Okay, thank you.
Holly?
No questions.
Nick?
I suppose I have a similar question this is probably gonna be a little weird and off topic, but if someone wanted to open like an egg sale place, I mean, would that have to go in like a commercial district then, and then we run into the conflict with,
That would likely have to go into a commercial district
and then, but the ordinance specifically says residential.
or an
so
agricultural district where
Say it would have
it's,
to be agricultural at that point, right? Which doesn't really exist aside from pre-existing land?
Right.
Okay. I don't know that concerns me, but that's probably my only question, I guess.
All good?
It's a strange topic, I'm sorry.
No, I get it. I get it.
I could talk about chickens for a really long time, but, no, that's all I got for now, I guess.
So part of the, I'm reading here that the renewal permit from yearly to every 2 years from the date of initial approval. In terms of code compliance, this is not something that we are going out and we're proactively looking at and inspecting. And
No.
you want chickens, you want a dog, have chickens, have a dog, have a certain number, right? Nick, on your point about once you start transacting with food, you fall into a whole slew of requirements with the health department and everything else. Someone wants to sell them, here, you've been warned. Right? You've been warned. I don't have any other comments or questions for you. I would look for a motion to approve the ordinance amendment. I want to make sure I read this right. The ordinance number 023774.
775.
Oh, 775, I'm sorry. No, the action requested is to approve and pass ordinance number 023-774 and the summary ordinance thereof, amending Title 10, Chapter 6, Section 29 of the Farmington City Code as it relates to chickens on residential lots.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Steve,
Second.
second by Holly. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Lean,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Hoyt,
Yes.
Councilmember Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, chickens and EDA tax levy, we're all good. We'll move on to our roundtable.
New business.
Oh, yeah, new
Mayor,
business,
yeah,
sorry.
you brought up wanting to include Mr. Pritzloff's
Correct.
comments in the packet for tonight. Is that fair to say?
Correct. Yeah.
I was curious on if the clerk had an opinion on how exactly that should be included or not included, or if Lynn has anything to add.
Mr. Pritzloff had submitted, he had a 4-page packet that he wanted to read. He didn't get to be able to read through
Yeah.
it, so I gave a copy to Shirley to make sure that she has it. Can that just be added as an addendum to the minutes?
I
Or-
think adding it to the minutes is going to be easier to find in the future.
Okay,
Okay, so your motion would be to add and then describe it to the minutes.
so I would seek a motion to approve the addition of David Pritzloff's 4-page resident comments from prior city council meeting to the official minutes of our council meeting dated August 21st, 2023.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm okay with this approach, but is the council taking a slippery slope whereby a resident could theoretically say, I wasn't able to make the meeting, but I've got this packet of information that I want to give to you. Can you include that in the minutes also? I mean, I just want to be careful because I think it's worthy to put Mr. Pritzloff's comments in the minutes, but I also worry that we're gonna be traveling down a hill that we may want to, we just gotta be a little careful, I think.
So I would seek legal guidance here.
Yeah, certainly. I can understand the concern, right? Once you start doing something, it's hard to like turn that bus around, especially if you have consistency bias, right? But you can make a choice today to include it and then another day to not have that motion pass. And there wouldn't be an issue with that. But I appreciate Councilmember Wilson's concerns about kind of the integrity of the minutes being an important thing that we shouldn't get used to changing.
Can we adjust the motion slightly?
There's no, I was
No.
seeking a motion, so one had not been made. If one would want to make a motion,
So no motion is on the floor right now.
no motion on the
There's
floor.
no motion on the floor.
Right.
Okay. Can we seek a motion to include Mr. Fitzloff's comments because he was unable to speak them at a meeting that he attended? And therefore, we would like to include the 4-page document in the minutes in lieu of his ability to actually vocalize what it was that he wanted to.
Correct. So
Submit.
in this situation, Mr. Pritzloff has been at a few prior council meetings. He has spoken during citizen comments regarding the Aiken Road project. He was granted time outside of the typical 5 minutes, and due to other agenda items, we wanted to be respectful of all parties that were here and the agenda as it sat. And he is out of the area and was not going to be in attendance, but he wanted to have them added to the official minutes because he was unable to complete his comments.
Yeah, so
the time
the
provided.
only difference for me is that
Yeah.
he was in attendance, recognizing that he was in attendance.
Correct.
Actually, would it be, not to belabor, wouldn't the most accurate motion be the inclusion, because the 5-minute rule limited his full reading of his comments? I mean, because that's really why we're doing it, because they weren't allowed to be read in completion.
Correct, correct. The motion the motion that I'm seeking is just the addition to the minutes. The basis by which is for us to discuss if we want to. And any future situations would be subject to us to discuss as well.
I'll second Holly's motion.
I don't know if she made one.
Oh, you didn't
I
make
thought I
it?
did make one,
Oh, okay.
but maybe not. Somebody else.
You could,
She sought the motion.
Yeah.
I sought the
Lori
motion.
made the motion.
yep.
I'll make the motion to, holy cow.
All right, I'm
What else?
Sorry.
going to,
It's getting late.
I'm looking for a motion to have David Pritzloff's comments from the August 21st regular city council meeting, citizens' comments portion, to be added to the official minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Nick, second by Holly. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Roundtable. Nick, you're up. Thank you.
I'll follow up that. I'll probably take everyone's thunder here, but please drive safe. School is back in session. The chief put out a nice message about rules for the, or I should say, the chief and marshal put out nice rules about obeying bus laws. Don't be one of those people that's breaking those rules. That's probably about it.
Holly?
Yes, that, and I had seen that Ken Lewis retired after 22 years of service to the city, so a happy retirement to him, well-deserved.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that piece as well, so thanks, Holly, for bringing that up. Yeah, Ken is, I asked Ken if he recalled how big the population of the city was when he started, and he thought it was about, I think somebody threw out 16,000, and I said, no, it had to be more like 9 or 10,000. Is that what we thought, Tony? Probably somewhere about there.
Between 9 to 10,000.
So, but one question I asked him, which might be of interest to council, I said, how close, because one thing Ken did for the city is he would estimate the population based on single-family or multifamily construction. And I said, how close were your numbers to the Met Council? And he said they were almost always spot on, which I think is cool, because he's providing estimates based on the number. I want to give a huge kudos to Kelly. That bus tour last week was awesome, and how you lined up a brand new bus and an awesome driver. I mean, huge bonus there, and we survived the hot weather. Kelly, I also want to thank you and whomever else was involved in the facility study report that we saw. It was just a really good report. There was obviously a lot of collaboration there, so nice job. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah?
Yes, Governor Walz's Commission on Judicial Selection recommended a few people for 2 empty seats in Dakota County for the bench. So something you can look into in Google. They have little bios about the people who have been selected, and then Governor Walz will be making an appointment for the bench. So you can learn more about a great branch of government. Thanks.
Thank you. Lynn?
Well, I'd like to send a special thank you to Dakota County Regional Chamber for being our partner. And they helped the city of Farmington host Amy Klobuchar at an event at Aerospace Fabrication. It was a good event, and we had some good conversations, so thanks to them. And I'd also like to thank John Moore for his bus chauffeur services that he provided for our parks tour. So thank you.
Thank you. Shirley?
Nothing from me tonight.
Julie?
Consent agenda tonight, you approved the hiring of 3 new full-time employees, 2 police officers and Ken's replacement as the building official. So all 3 will start in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. Deanna?
I just wanted to mention this. You'll all receive invitations as well, but on September 19th at 1 o'clock, there'll be the groundbreaking for the Emery. The Emery is the apartments, the Ebert Construction apartments, and construction. You've probably noticed that there's fences up and some traffic control signs, but that is starting. So it will be called the Emery to honor the history here in Farmington. And again, on the 19th at 1 o'clock, there'll be a groundbreaking.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. A few notes on road activities. As mentioned, work at the apartment building has started, so the parking spots on the west side will be blocked off for a while. Excuse me, while they disconnect the utilities over in that area. In the future, there will be a short-term closure of 3rd Street to actually connect the new utilities, sanitary sewer and water in the roadway, but that'll be a short-term closure. Flagstaff and County Road 50, the county is waiting for Frontier to relocate their facilities. They don't have a set schedule for when that's going to happen, so that turn modification keeps getting pushed back. On Spruce Street, that is not the city doing construction out there, that is the FAA doing construction on their storm sewer outfall. Just to clarify that, we tried to coordinate that with our schedule and it just didn't work out. Also on Pilot Knob, another county project, they appear to have all the paving done for the turn lane at 206th Street, so that's moving forward. And on a very sad note, we extend our condolences to the family of Tom Kaldunsky. Tom was former Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of Farmington. He recently retired from the City of Inver Grove Heights as their City Engineer. I knew Tom for decades, being in the business, but he passed away last week.
Thank you, sir. Kelly?
It's hard to believe it's time, but Friday is the 2nd annual fall food truck event at Empire, hosted by Farmington Parks and Recreation Commission and the Empire Parks and Recreation Commission. We have 7 food trucks. They will be there Friday night at Stelzo Ball Fields from 5 to 8 p.m. Looks like it's going to be a good night, so to hope to see everybody there. And then on Saturday, we have our last movie in the park for the season at Disted Park, 5:30 p.m. Kids Dance, followed by the movie Hocus Pocus at dusk, which we're assuming or thinking about 7:30 p.m. So grab your blanket and some popcorn and come out and watch the movie with us.
Thank you. Chris?
As council may be aware, the city will be going through a financial accounting and payroll utility billing conversion in 2024. We received news last week that our scheduled go live date of September 1 of 2024 has been pushed back 3 months. They've run into some issues with the initial conversion. They need to work those issues out before they start spreading that out to the other cities and things like that. So just pass that on.
Thank you. Chief?
Yeah, I would like to reiterate one more time on the whole school bus stop arm violation issue. Stopping for the flashing red lights and the stop arms is not just a suggestion or a best practice. It is actually required by law. The cameras that have been installed on all of the school bus stop arms at Marshall lines have shown us over the last year how pervasive the problem actually is. So I would just plead with the motoring public to give the school buses and the students a little bit of room and stop for those stop arms.
Did we have any incidents today?
Not aware of any today,
Okay.
but it's one day.
It's one day.
We will have violations.
We typically have
there's
2 or
no
3
question.
on day one. It's inevitable.
I didn't hear that we had any, but that doesn't mean that some didn't come in late in the afternoon.
Right.
Sometimes it takes them, a couple hours to get the reports to us.
Thank you, sir. Tony? Nothing, just the chickens. All right. Fair enough. I won't beat the school bus safety thing anymore. We have all made that point very clear, and it is a constant reminder. I noticed over the weekend driving around that the corn seems to be a lot more ready to be pulled from the fields early September than it does in years past. So as our meetings come up every couple of weeks, Mother Nature keeps changing, and in addition to our school buses and our kiddos and the safety, keep in mind when it's 75 degrees out and the sun is setting a little bit later, look out for your motorcycles. Look out for the kiddos on the bikes. Be mindful of our farmers who are out harvesting, because that season feels like it's going to come earlier this year than it has in past years. So just things change very quickly when you come out of Labor Day. We had talked about the Emery and the Eber Construction Building. That is slated for Thursday, it sounds like. Thursday would be like the first kind of demo day or preliminary. So somewhere in there. Somewhere this week, the plan is to start pulling that building down. There is a certain level of uncomfortability with demo. And rest assured, the contractor will do what they can to mitigate as many of those things as possible. But don't lose sight of the opportunity that this project brings to our community. We've deliberated it over and over and over again through the TIF process, but one of our priorities is community engagement, and it's continuing to share that information in whatever means we can, as much as we can, and trying to reach as many residents as we can. And we understand that sometimes it doesn't always reach everyone, and sometimes it doesn't reach those that come into our community from outside of our borders. But this is a great project for our community. This is a great project for our future. Not only is it in alignment with our downtown redevelopment plan, but it also is adding density. It's bringing a several $million valuation project to an area that needed a little bit of a bump in some value, needed some help with some of the buildings being improved. And we've seen that with the Exchange Bank building and a few others. But let's not lose sight of what this project also means for future development. It puts a giant flag in the air and signals to other developers that we are a community that is ready for something that looks a little different, something that adds more density, helps drive our populace and create opportunities that are economic development. This project is not just another housing piece. It is an economic development piece. This is a business. This is a large investment by a company that had options and chose Farmington. And let's not lose sight of that. Additionally, this supports prospective employers. It offers another piece to our housing mix that is supportive of our existing employers and prospective employers looking to either grow their business, enhance their business, and/or bring their business to Farmington. You need housing for your workforce. And this is a project that also supports that. So while there might be some line of sight issues, there might be some it's different, it's uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is okay. Change is constant, and it is all good. It is how we are working towards that promising future on the seal behind me. And last, I'm going to hit on a personal note. We don't talk often about mental health, and this is something that is deeply personal and passionate to me. I had one of my Marine brothers whose 24-year-old son committed suicide last week, and is a very harsh reminder that mental health is very real. It is in front of us, every one of us, coming out of COVID and all of the dynamics in our life that are different in this new reality that is post-COVID. How we work, how we interact with others, teleconferencing, virtual, it has displaced the personal interaction. And so my ask is this, reach out to your network, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors, talk to someone who you haven't talked to in a while, and just check in on them, see how they're doing. Because they may not be in a dire situation, but everybody needs a little pick-me-up and could use more hugs and smiles. And suicide is not good. And that is something we want to never have to talk about, but it's a reality of the world that we live in. So just check in on everyone that you can and make sure everyone's doing good. It's my ask. With that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Steve,
Second.
second by Holly. All in favor, say aye.